On the chop saw here, one of these boards goes in the back. It's going to need two miter joints, miter cuts. The other two needed them on one end. So it doesn't really matter which face, that's up to you if you decide which face you like one more than the other. But when you're cutting, make sure you're going to cut one this way, then you got to flip it over to cut the other side. Okay? Or if I cut this way and bring it down to the other side, I'll have to flip it over. So either way works, but I'm going to set a stop so that I know all three of them are exactly the same size. But for now, just trim off one end, and then we'll worry about the length. Remember to hold it tight. The board's going to want to move away, so keep a good grip. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just flip it, but I need to know where to cut. Take a tape measure, and remember, with a miter joint on there, I can't really use my stop. It doesn't work. It's not going to work the same way. So we just put a 16-inch mark right there, and I'm going to move that same mark to the top so I can see it, and that represents the outside, so the cut has to go inward. So I simply put it there, line up the shadow of the blade right where I want it. Now I have a nice 16-inch board with miters on both sides. Now the other two, we can use that stop. Let me just move this down to 16 and gently put it against the stop right there. If I hit it too hard, you might damage the sharp miter, and we don't want to do that. And of course, just straighten out your blade, and you're good to go. This is the machine that we use to make pocket screw joints. It's going to drill the holes for the pocket screws, which I found is the easiest way to hold these together and screw them down. So we're putting them in the edges here. Usually we're putting them in the ends, but in this case, I need to lay it this way. Now, these stops are in the way. To take them off, simply unscrew, and they pull right off, and you can lay them aside. Unscrew it, pull it right off. However, please put them back on when you're done. And you do that, this bolt here, the head of this bolt fits into this T-track. So you have to line it up, get the bolt head lined up. And normally you'll see a little arrow right here. That goes on the outside edge of this, and you'll tighten. And that'll be set up for most of our face frames. So just put it back when you're done. But for now, lay them aside, and we're good to move on. So this is how it goes. We make the box just like that. So this, of course, represents the inside where the drawer is going to go. So I need two pocket screws about here and about there. Your best guess, 2, 2, and 2. And to get that, make sure your miter cut is down. So keep in mind, you might want to keep this set up so I don't make two lefts or two rights. So here, that's the edge. That edge goes against the fence. And I'm putting it in a couple inches, maybe 3 inches, and then press the pedal. Go ahead and press the pedal. Let it finish its cut before you release it. Then move it down and about the same amount in. Okay, so that one's finished. And there's a little bit of tear out, but that's okay. This one I need that edge. Okay, and this one I need this downside edge, so that needs to flip around. To do the next step where we're actually going to put them together and screw them down onto this, you need a few tools. First, I'd certainly grab a tri-square, need some tape, and we're going to be using these screws. These are pan head square drive screws. They're the face frame screws that we use whenever we're doing pocket screws. You do not want to use the black ones in the drawer. The bugle head ones is what they're called, because that'll split the end. These have a special head specific for these kind of joints. grab a little bit of glue and some tape, take your pieces, and before we even get this started, I want to know what direction this has got to go. Where's the drawer going to go? Where's my left and right? Now, because this is actually square both ways, it can work in all 4 directions. It doesn't matter. So this is my good side. My good side is down, and I always put it on a mat because I don't want to move it around on my table and scratch my nice surface. Now, in my case, I've got a pretty good knot. When people carry this, they tend to hold it side by side, and then the drawer's in the front. That's how they hold it. I don't want people's hands to be touching this defect, so I'm going to put the knot in the back. So the drawer is going to come towards me. So I'll probably flip that around towards me. Just remember, this has to stay open. So I'll have my 3 pieces here, and I'll just kind of move that aside. Take your 3 pieces and get them lined up so the miter joints match and your screw directions match. Because it's really easy to put it together like that by accident, and then the screws are going opposite directions. So put it down so that all the screws are correct. Go ahead and flip them all over. And we just put them together end for end. So we've done this before in other projects, boxes and so forth, of how we tape this together. And this is no different. This is the same system because it works. You stretch out the tape, make it nice and tight, so when you put it together, that will give you a nice tight miter joint. Okay, and we do the same on the other one. Good. Then go ahead and flip it back over. And I glue the miter joints, but I do not glue it down to this. It just makes a big mess. You put it down and things are wobbling around. The glue you put on the edges here just messes up the sides. Besides, the screws that we're using, they're not going to let go. This will be a plenty strong joint. Take your glue bottle and put some glue between them. And you really don't need a ton because it's going to make such a tight joint. It's going to squeeze a lot of this out. So I don't put a ton of glue. Just kind of put it in and move it around. If you get a lot of glue, squeeze out, go ahead and just squeeze it out with your finger, and that's fine. And some in the front, that's okay. We'll just sand that out later. So we got a decent amount of squeeze out, just pull that out. The nice thing is, because I'm doing this with my finger because inside you're not going to see it. So now we take it and set it down as carefully as we can because I don't want to move a lot of glue around. There we go, just like that. Now how I'm lining it up is so the edge of the miter here lines up with my miter there, and I'm trying to move it around so that my overhang should be the same. This is where tape measure comes in handy. I should have about 3/4 to 7/8 of an overhang, and I just need to make it even. Now for the moment, I'm only worried about this piece of wood. So if I measure here, let me move this down a little, I have just under 7/8, and I have just under 7/8 of an inch, right about there. So my overhang looks the same. Now we go ahead and take your drill, and they got to have a nice 6-inch drill bit with a square drive. Hold it in place and screw it in. Okay, just nice and snug. That's still in the right place. I'm going to nudge this one back. The closer you can get this first one, the rest of them line up a lot easier. All right, so now this piece isn't moving. Now this is where the square comes in handy. Put the square in, and you're going to pull that in until this is square. I need that to be 90 degrees so the drawer is going to fit correctly. So we can take your pocket screw and just set it in the hole. This is the one that's going to make sure it's in the right place anyway. Get that just right. Hold it down, screw it in. Then I'll worry about this one in a second, but do the same thing on the other side. Pull it in. Right there. The better you can get this square, the better it'll be. Now if those are square, go ahead and screw in the other two. The only other thing, of course, take your tape measure. So that's why I'm off by 1/16. So that's 14 and 7/16, and that is 14 and 7/16. Exactly.